Hi ladies and gentlemen, Aaron Chalner here for Forever Football, DRFC, your Doncaster Rovers fan channel. It is Daily Reports time. Now obviously this is a huge update and there will be another huge update in a few days time next week when we should be receiving more details via a sit down with Gavin Baldwin and the media, so the Free Press. Main writer Liam Hoden will be sitting down with Gavin Baldwin. We believe the Black Bank could be sitting down with Gavin Baldwin face to face as well. No holds barred Q&A. And we know BBC Radio Sheffield have publicly said that they've inquired about an interview with Gavin Baldwin. We don't know what's going on with there yet. But what has happened the previous day is there was a big, well not big, but a round table meeting with some of the press, with the supporters groups, and with Gavin Baldwin and Richie Wellens. Now, of course, there was no David Blunt, the chairman. The chairman wasn't there speaking at the meeting. Obviously, you know, that's his decision. And, you know, we did get a few points from them. So what I've done is I've taken the statements from the Black Bank on social media from the meeting. I've also added a couple of context, context corrections from a couple of other sources. So the Free Press is mentioned at one point. Sean Lockwood from media is mentioned at one point as well. So yeah, stay tuned for all of that. It's just a couple of corrections to what the Black Bank have said from the meeting. But I'm going to read you the whole statement and share my thoughts on it. So before we get started, please like the video if you loved it. Comment down below your thoughts and opinions. Subscribe if you are new around here. Click the notification bell so you never miss a YouTube video. Stay tuned for a second video today, summarising the transfer window and the deadline day shambles. And also stay tuned for a review tonight of England against Hungary in the World Cup qualifier. So let's get straight into this video with the statement from the Black Bank, with the statements combined together to make one big statement from the Black Bank after the round table meeting. This is what the Black Bank had to say. So Doncaster Rovers Football Club attempted to get the Grigg deal done 3 or 4 weeks ago. They were informed by Sunderland that they were willing to release him once they got at least one of the two players from Germany in on loan. The Grigg deal was all set to go through until Rotherham made an approach and the player chose to go there. Once this became apparent, Sunderland agreed to sanction the loan of Aidan O'Brien to us. This was agreed and signed before 9 PM by both parties. It became apparent that Sunderland had made an error and the EFL rejected the paperwork to complete the deal. Once this was rectified, the deadline had passed. Both clubs launched an appeal to the EFL, which were rejected. Aidan was keen on the move because he wants regular football. As a result, we are now negotiating at one very experienced free agent with the possibility of a second. They hope to have a deal wrapped up by the start of next week. We are reminded that the comment regarding replacing John Marquis with a like-for-like striker with a proven pedigree came directly from Darren Moore and not from the board. The deal never materialised because Darren changed his mind and pulled out the deal. Basically pulled the plug out the deal. Richie Wellens maintained that there is no rift between he and the board. He has no plans to walk and can see his long-term future at the club. Funds released were higher this season than last and will be again next season due to the way the club operates around its business model. They maintain that extra funds can/will be made available as and when required, as they were yesterday when we wanted to finalise a deal. Wellens states his vision for the club is to build a core team and work around it. He doesn't want to be in a position where we lose 15 players and bring 15 players in each season. Hopes that in a few years there'll only be the need to replace 2 or 3 players each season. And I did see a separate post by the Black Bank, just to go aside from this, that said that there's a possibility that next season could be the first season in a long time where we only have to bring in 3 or 4 players. So that's potentially very exciting. Depends if you believe the information, if that gets, I guess, either further detail explained or it gets sort of confirmed or somewhat referenced to in a more detailed chat in a few days' time. So let's go back to the statement. So the club have implemented a business model that essentially allows the club to pay for itself without the need for the owner to pump in money season by season to pay debts off or, in quotes, fund it to stay still. Any surplus money goes into the playing budget. Now, the Black Bank have then said the club has gone from losing 10 million a season to breaking even. However, Sean Lockwood quoted this and corrected this, saying that was his error. He quoted projected losses for the experiment season from memory, which at one point were 10 million due to the way the experiment was going. The total losses were around £3.3 million that season. So a bit of correction there. It isn't 10 million a season. The total losses were around 3.3 million that season, but it was due to the way the experiment was going. The projected losses were at £1.10 million. So just a bit of correction there. Club are confident that if any potential future investor looked at the club, they would be more likely to select us as they wouldn't be paying off debts or funding us to stay still. I will explain more about that point at the end of the statement, because there's a couple of talking points from this statement. We asked about why David Blunt doesn't get involved with the public. We were informed that David works internally with the business side of the club and leaves the football side of things to the manager, the CEO and the COO. Gavin doesn't believe that there was any ineptitude over the transfer period, and that if we'd have secured a striker, comments like this would not have been made. Now, I want to challenge this straight away and say there would have been challenges towards the striker even if we signed them, and that is because it was done too late. There should have been more planning at that particular transfer, in my opinion, and I think other fans would agree with that. So that's the first point I would sort of challenge on and say, hang on a minute, that's not exactly true. But that's Gavin's opinion. This is my opinion. Now, he went on to say, however, he did not respond to the question on whether he would resign. Now, that is interesting. It was a no-holds-barred Q&A. It was a round-table meeting. The fact that he didn't respond to that question makes me think, hang on, either one, he wants to avoid it, or two, something is happening in his position. That's just my opinion. Then we go into our next point. The board state there have been no change in aspirations. We are rebuilding and our plan is to consolidate. There is a continuous 5-year plan, but this is adapted every year dependent on factors such as players are out of contract, if the managers move on, and finances, etc. Now, the Free Press quoted this particular point and actually corrected this and said the original 5-year plan stated that the aim was to get Doncaster Rovers in the Championship and the Dons in the Super League for rugby by 2022. That has not happened, of course, and you've got to think the original 5-year plan was a few years back. It was 2017. In 2017, we were going through that rough period. Let's just take a little look, shall we, at Doncaster Rovers in 2017. I'm not going to pay too much attention to the rugby side of things, but I want to focus on the Doncaster Rovers side of things rather than the Dons side of things, rather than the rugby side of things. So let's talk about the 16-17 season. So, of course, we were back in League 2 following the relegation the season before that, the 2015-2016 season, of course, a very legendary season in football with Leicester winning the Premier League. But 16-17, we were in League 2 for the first time in ages and ages and ages. Darren Ferguson was in charge. We were promoted automatically in 3rd place. Then we hit the 17-18 season, and this is where the original 5-year plan was scheduled to start. Now, the 17-18 season, we finished 15th in the league. We had Darren Ferguson as manager. And then going into 18-19, we had Grant McCann, who took us to 6th place. And, of course, that antagonising, that unfortunate playoff semi-final heartache against Charlton. Then with only a few contracted players at the club, he left. Darren Moore came in. We got 9th in the pandemic season, the season cut off by the pandemic. And of course then last season it was a 14th place finish with Darren Moore not seeing out the season. Now, obviously, with that, that's going to contradict some of the points. Obviously, the original 5-year plan was Donny in the Championship and the Dons Rugby Club in the Super League by 2022. That is, of course, next year. Now, of course, like I said, and you know, this is a transitional season, so it looks like they're going to have to try and set this 5-year plan back quite a couple of years, quite a few years here. If the Wanderers back in the Championship in 2022 would have been in a position this season to do so if there wasn't for other factors to take into account, such as the pandemic, managers leaving. That's why they've put this clause in Wellens' contract to make it harder to leave. So I think that's why they've done it, sort of try and stick to the timeline of the 5-year plan as much as possible. But again, we have no idea. We have no idea what the timeline is now. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a bit more detail in a few days next week, where Gavin tells the media exactly where the 5-year plan stands. You know, what we're doing 5-year plan wise. Has the timeline moved? Obviously it will have done. You know, what's the timeline now for this club? What's the future plans for this club further down the line? Now, I just wanted to put that little bit of context in there from the Free Press itself. The board believe our biggest issue, back to the Black Bank statement, the board believe our biggest issue is overturning so many managers. Once we lose one, whether that's to a higher division or if they're relieved of their duties, they still come in and overhaul the squad to get them playing the manager's way. The board used an example for another Football League club who are doing better than what fans would have thought of 10 years ago, as they have one steady manager for a period of time so they can recruit players to suit an established style and identity. So, of course, that could be any of that could be a few clubs. That could be Accrington Stanley, could have reference to, could have been Wycombe Wanderers. If they included Premier League clubs, if they were talking about Premier League clubs, then you would have seen the likes of Brentford being mentioned and Leicester City and things like that. So, because it's a Football League club, we're probably looking at the likes of Wycombe and Accrington and things like that. So, that's what we're sort of looking at here in that retrospect. So finally then, back to the statement. Gavin is hoping for Rich to stay on as long as possible to execute a long-term plan of building a core squad and then only having to buy 2 or 3 players a year to establish our identity. Now, of course, there has been loads of rumours about things like the free agent striker and, you know, different fan reaction to all this talk. Liam Hoden had confirmed, you know, as I'm recording this, just about half an hour ago as I'm recording this, that there is no interest in one particular name that has been mentioned by fans, and that is, of course, David Nugent. Should be interesting to see who we settle down on, but it should be interesting. So that, my friend, is the Black Bank's official full statement from the meeting yesterday. A lot of information to digest. Do you believe it? Comment down below. Obviously, with the shambles of deadline day, and I know everyone's frustrated about that, fans, players, manager, you know, press, media, YouTubers like myself, 18 Dapper was furious. He said it on his transfer window summary. I will do a transfer window summary, of course. That video is coming out before the England review tonight. You know, 18 Dapper said it on his transfer window summary. A lot of fans frustrated. Frustrations boiled over. A lot of anger went to Liam Hoden from the Free Press. A lot of anger went to 18 Dapper, and a lot of anger went to me as well. I got a lot of anger. 18 Dapper got a lot of anger sent his way. Same with Liam Hoden. Same with other fans. And basically, we were told we were up the board's backside. 18 Dapper said it on his video last night. I'll say it today. I volunteer my services to the club. The away fan interviews for the pre-game show, I do it for free. I do it in my own time. There's no specialties. There's no handouts. There's nothing given to me by the club. I do it for free. I do it in my own time. I do it because I love the club. You know, this is volunteering my services to help the club on the media side of things. Same with 18 Dapper. I'm sure Liam does his press work. He does it exceptionally well. He brings us only the best to give us the best information possible. Other fans and other journalists do the best they can to give us whatever we need possible. So, to take the Black Bank statement with the corrections involved, sort of sum up my thoughts on all of this, and look, you'll see in the video that I put out when we confirmed that Greg was off to Rotherham. You know, at the time I recorded that video, it hasn't been confirmed, but then obviously when I uploaded it, it was confirmed that he was a Rotherham player by the club at 11 p.m. We were all in hysterics of anger because of the transfer situation on deadline day. We brought in a winger, Cam, that, you know, he was completely out of left field, not disrespecting the kid, because I'm sure I've seen highlights of him. He's a decent talent, and I really hope Rodrigo Vilca does well. But let's face it, in the cold hard light of day, he was a left field buy. He was someone that we were not linked to before. It's someone we brought in the 11th hour, pretty much. And you could tell it. You could absolutely tell it. You know, think of it what you will, but him wearing his Newcastle United tracksuit bottoms in a Doncaster Rovers signing photo, and the badge was slightly on show, so you could see part of the Newcastle badge on the tracksuit bottoms, with the Doncaster shirt in the background. You could tell, and I don't know if this is true or not, but this is just my interpretation, you could tell he just came from watching Newcastle United under 23s at Hillsborough against Sheffield Wednesday in the Papa John's Trophy, travelled straight to Doncaster, signed the deal, made it official, and there was not enough time to put a $4 kit on or anything like that. It was 11th hour signing. That, to me, is not proper planning for deadline day. No striker, a left field signing that we were never linked to before until the 11th hour. We didn't even have a link before we signed him. It was literally just, there he is. No links, no rumours, not even before we announced it. Just, there he is. And I hope Rodrigo does really well, because he can play in the 10, he can play on the wing, he can do both roles. I hope he does well. But the lack of planning sent fans into meltdown. And myself, 18 Dapper, people that backed the board for a long time, were so furious at that, and we demanded statements, we demanded answers. And we seem to be starting, hopefully, fingers crossed, to get those answers. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we're getting those answers, and we're getting the rectifications of it. We got some information from the Black Bank and from what other people have said in the meeting, the VSC forum, VSC official, the Viking chat. They quote a lot of the stuff that was said in the Black Bank statement. I'm sure that the Free Press will put some stuff out, some basic details, but obviously they're going to do more in-depth stuff with Gavin next week. You know, do I find it quite controversial that in a few days' time I'm going to get more details from the Free Press for Gavin? Do I find it controversial? I think some fans came out and said that they find it controversial because they think that, oh, they're just buying themselves time to bring the striker, so we don't have to, you know, answer to the board anymore. You know, some people find it controversial, but me personally, I don't see any controversy in it. I think it's just timing. Excuse me. It's a difficult situation at the moment. Obviously, there's a few things in there that sort of struck me as odd. Baldwin dodging the question of whether he's resigning or not. That struck me as odd. You know, is something going on with the CEO role in the next few years? Is something going on? Is something happening? And again, this is what fans are asking for. They're asking for transparency. And when you dodge such an important question, it don't matter if you don't like the question, you still have to answer it, in my opinion. So him dodging that particular question struck me as odd, and that shows us just a small part of the lack of transparency with the fan base. That's just my opinion anyway. Blunt working internally, leaving the football stuff to Gavin, to Richie, to the COO, to the people in the football side. Fair enough. Some chairmen do different things. Some chairmen do them in different ways. Some chairmen do it one way. Some people do it the other way. I can respect, you know, if he does it a certain way. You know, and then there's a few other things that struck out to me. The fact that hopefully, fingers crossed, if all goes to plan, next season we'll only need to bring in 3 or 4 players instead of bucket loads every season. It's not going to be 15 out, 15 in every season. Fingers crossed that that's something that, you know, something that can be rectified in the next few years, something that can be, you know, helped in the next few years. 3 or 4 signings a year, that could be great. And I feel like, you know, if we stick to that process, then maybe that's something good for us. Maybe that's a great way to go. Maybe that's a great way to not spend on a brand new squad every season and keep rebuilding every single year. And again, the clause in the manager's contract will help that as well. So all in all, my advice would be, don't read 100% into everything that came out of that meeting yesterday. Don't read 100% into it. Take it 50-50. And just wait for the more in-depth stuff to come out in the next few days. But for now, encouraging signs, but do you believe it? I'm holding off judgment until I see the proof in the pudding. We bring 3 or 4 players in next season instead of a whole new squad, and we start to see long-term change. I'm holding off judgment until then. But there we go, guys. Thank you very, very much for watching this video. I'll be back with the transfer window summary and the England-Hungary review tonight. Stay tuned for all that. And for now, Forever Football, DRFC, keep on the Rovers life, and that, my friends, full-time. Rovers Side Die, thank you very much. Leave your comments and debates in the comment section down below. Is this the future of Donny Rovers? Let's see what happens. Rovers,